welcome to Honey, I Shrunk the Kitsch. If you're wondering if I forgot about this Christmas mouse house, the answer is okay, well, kind of. But now we're hopping back into it by making some Christmas bell pulls. If you're wondering what a bell pull is, here in Downton Abbey, you see Lady Mary using one here to summon the servants who are delighted. And what she's reaching for right here, this cross stitch thing, that is the actual bell pull. And in her house, that connects to a bell in the servants' quarters that says that she needs aid. Now, in our Christmas mouse house, we don't have a downstairs of servants, but we do have an adorable teacup elevator. So we're going to make some bell pulls for that. I happen to have some needlework projects that are specifically for 112 scale miniatures, and it includes, what do you know, several bell pulls. So I started out here with this Christmas themed bell pull. It's got a bell, a tree, the word joy. It fits the theme perfectly, and it's also really relaxing to do. After I finished that one, the other bell pulls that were in the book had different themes to it, so I just changed the colors. I used green and red on this one. It looks kind of like poinsettias. That one was already completely red, but I decided to make it kind of a green and red interlocking thing to look a little more Scandinavian Christmas. And then I freehanded the plaid. And this is where I went off the rails a little bit. I did, so help me, I did try and read and follow the instructions. So I got out my interfacing, which in my case is a leftover pack of fusible fleece. And then I did cut each of my little bell pulls to size, just a quarter inch away from the design. Normally, I would mark a project before cutting, but since this is some cross stitch cloth, I just counted the same, like 4 threads out and cut along the squares there. So I did that very carefully around each of the sides of each of the bell pulls. And I ended up with each of these 4 adorable bell pulls all cut out. And this is not where the part where I screwed up, but trust me, it's coming. Because the thing is, with the interfacing, I want all these edges to be hidden. So I'm like, well, I don't want to have bulky corners. See, when I fold over this side, and then if I go to fold over the connecting side, you'll end up with a lot of bulk here in the corner. So I marked where I was going to fold it over and then used my scissors to cut a little triangle, just like this. And then I ironed it again and folded over as normal on each side. And then when you look at the way that the corners connect with these clipped edges, that looks like it's going to be very nice and neat. Isn't that a great idea? Yeah, don't do that. This is my villain origin story. That was a terrible idea because look what happens. Now I've cut my fusible fleece to size and I'm ironing it on very carefully, counting to 10 just like I'm supposed to. But spoiler alert, it does not work out. Having that many loose threads right by the corner, and I don't know if the glue on the fusible fleece wasn't strong enough or whatever, I tried using my mini iron, which is adorable, but also wasn't any freaking help. So, you know what I always like to say, if at first you don't succeed, try again, then quit. No use being a darn fool about it. So in this case, my version of quitting is taking out some backing fabric, cutting that to size for each of these little bell pulls, and then sewing it on after I line it up so it's exactly the same size. I'm going to sew it all the way around 3 sides, and that will take care of hiding these edges, right? And giving it that dimension where it has a little bit of a backing and it's not going to fray or just lie flat against the wall. So that was a little fiddly, but it did work. And then with this opening, I just folded over the backing and the front together and used a ladder stitch. Also, you can call it an invisible stitch, just to sew up that little bit of a gap. I'll be honest, that's the first smart thing I did in this whole little bell pull finishing project. So I went ahead and I just used the ladder stitch to finish off the other 3 entirely. But here we are, crisis averted, no frayed corners are peeking through, and now we can attach the bells and the handles. So here we go. I have 4 of these jingle bells, and I'm going to attach one to the bottom of each one. I'm not connecting it like they did in Downton Abbey to any kind of central location. I just want them to be able to call for an elevator on whatever floor they're on without, yelling down the elevator shaft. And I'm going to use the remains of my green and red thread and these leftover beads from a broken bracelet that I always thought was pretty. And that gives us a little bit of hardware at the top that's also gold, but isn't going to be too overwhelming. So here I am doing this at the speed of light. Actually, just sped up recording. This actually took me at least a couple evenings and several episodes of Chicago Med. But this is really enjoyable to me. I like doing this kind of stuff. And while we're here, if you're new to this project, since I kind of slept on updating for a good while, the concept behind the Christmas Mouse House, it's going to be a miniature advent calendar for my children to be able to reenact or play our activity for the day each day in the Christmas season. And I'm decorating it rather, by using only materials I already have around the house or are left over from other projects. So the jingle bells are left over, that cross stitch cloth is left over from another abandoned project. These embroidery flosses, I don't know the numbers of them, they're just random at the bottom of my sewing basket. But it's been a great creative challenge for me to just use what I have and think about it kind of like The Borrowers, if you read those books by Mary Norton. My other inspiration for this project was the 1980s cartoon "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," which has some mice that live in a clockmaker's house and accidentally make Santa Claus so mad he skips Christmas. But, spoiler alert, it's a Christmas movie. It all works out well in the end. And at any rate, now I have all four of these bell pulls finished. I love how these turned out, and it's time to attach them in the Christmas mouse house. Now, because I've wallpapered each of these, I left some floor molding to also be the upper molding of each room. And I'm just going to add a screw so that kids can actually switch out these bell pulls from room to room. And I think that's one of the most fun things about having a dollhouse is switching up the decor. So here we go. Thank you so much for joining me as I recommit to this project. I hope you'll join me again next week on Honey, I Shrunk the Kitsch for another update on the Christmas Mouse House. Thanks for watching.